A lot of my content revolves around clowning on gurus who can show you how to get rich quick. Today we're going to deep dive into what happens when you actually get rich overnight. I love analyzing the relationship between humans and money, so this is a topic I study deeply. Every friend I make that has a high net worth, I'm always asking about money's effect on their behavior, spending decisions, and causation with happiness levels. This article in New York Mag titled Confessions of an Overnight Millionaire. I constantly ask myself, do I deserve this money? It's one of the first articles I've read that involved someone being brutally honest about receiving a large windfall. According to the New York Daily News, 70% of lottery winners end up broke within 7 years. Even worse, several winners have died horribly or witnessed those close to them suffer. How in the world can you win the lottery and end up broke within 7 years? After I joined the company, people would say things like, I think I'll retire off this money. I thought they were delusional. Then last year, a friend called and said, are you ready to be a millionaire? Check the news. That's how I learned my company was IPOing. I had no idea I would be making north of $6 million. One of the most important psychological concepts to understand in life is called hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation refers to the notion that after positive or negative events, something good or bad happening to someone, and a subsequent increase in positive or negative feelings, people return to a relatively stable baseline level of effect. I can't stress enough that this is one of the most important principles to understand in life. Within the same article, in a classic study that illustrates this hedonic adaptation, Brickman, Coates, and Janoff-Buhlman found that 18 months after winning the lottery, people were no happier than a comparison condition who did not win the lottery. We all have a daily hedonic set point. This is a measure of our current state of happiness with life. I view this on a scale of 1 to 10. Most of us live our lives between 3 and 7 on the scale, which follows a natural distribution curve. The delta between our hedonic set point and the current event we just experienced is what determines the intensity of the emotion. Picture it like this. Let's say your hedonic set point with happiness is a 5 out of 10 right now. When you experience a positive event that is an 8 out of 10, you will feel happy in that moment because of the delta between the two numbers. A good example would be an awesome dinner with friends or your favorite sports team winning an important playoff game. The cliche question asking if money buys happiness is incredibly flawed because in nearly 100% of scenarios, it does make people happy. Getting rich overnight will increase your happiness to 10 immediately. The catch is that it's in the short term. Money provides short-term happiness, but long-term happiness is an entirely different subject.
I was a millionaire. I had beautiful women in my life. I had cars, a house, an incredible, a solid gold career, and a future. And yet, on a daily basis, I wanted to commit suicide.
I really dislike the media sharing this concept of money not buying happiness because it's incredibly flawed. They only ask people who are rich and famous. I can absolutely guarantee if we went to a rough part of town, handed lottery money to 10 separate people, and tracked their happiness for a month, it would be significantly higher than their previous hedonic set point. Happiness is a temporary emotion, which is why tracking someone's hedonic set point is a more valid data set. None of us are happy 24/7, just like we aren't fearful 24/7 or anxious 24/7. We all have a baseline and experience spikes in different emotions throughout our day. That's when we feel it. It's not purely a celebratory time, it's a stressful time too because of the constant decisions. The amount of money is so large that if I make a 5% screw up, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. A majority of Americans are living in what I refer to as survival mode. Within the paradigm of relationship to money and life situation, this is where all of your problems can be solved with money. This group of people are those who, if their main income source went to $0, then they would have to find a new income source within 6 months. What happens with lottery winners, athletes, musicians who experience a quick rise to fame, and actors who have a sudden smash hit is that they immediately exit survival mode and enter a new level of life where money can't solve all problems.
When those things came, the happiness wasn't there, and I realized why that was. There was such an attempt to achieve these things and to keep going.
What no one seems to ask these celebrities is if they'd rather wake up tomorrow in their current shoes or living paycheck to paycheck in a house with roommates.
When you have all this stuff, doesn't mean you're happy.
When you win the lottery, you can now spend like never before. You want a mansion in a gated community in the best school district? Go buy it. You want an exotic sports car? Buy 3 of them. You want to quit your job? Now you can.
Well, there was some study recently that I was reading about where they were talking about how you can't be happy all the time, and you don't want to be happy all the time. Like literally, you won't achieve the same levels of happiness all the time if you're not miserable. Like you don't ever hit those highs unless you hit those lows.
Asking if someone is happy is such a silly question because it's a temporary emotion that you don't even want all the time. In order to feel an emotion, you have to be without it first. Just as Joe was alluding to, in order to feel happy, you actually have to experience a period when you're not happy. Think about it like this. You're watching a YouTube video right now. I'm assuming you don't have the fear emotion flowing throughout your body. In order to feel fear, a stranger will need to break through your front door. You would feel it because you're without it right now.
When I was 16, like my dream car was a Mustang Cobra, right? So if I got a Mustang Cobra, I would have been at a 10. But you know, a Ferrari would also bring me to a 10. I mean, but you can't go higher than a 10, right?
With people who win the lottery or get rich overnight, they immediately have the ability to buy anything. From a material purchase standpoint, their new hedonic set point is a 10. The challenge is there's nothing better, so it becomes incredibly challenging to experience that feeling again.
So let's just say that I got Ferrari when I was 16, and now we flash forward, I graduate college, and my dad gives me let's say he gives me a BMW M5. If I had the Ferrari, now I'm going to be kind of like probably at a 7, right? Because I'm stepping down in a car.
The feelings that humans experience come from the delta between your previous emotional state and the new emotional state. You can apply this to every facet of life. The dangers of all of a sudden having the ability to buy anything is that your new set point is at a 10. It becomes nearly impossible to maintain because you always need a 10 out of 10 experience. Anything less is going to result in negative emotions because the delta is negative.
But if I had the Mustang Cobra and now I'm going to an M5, I'm going to be back at a 10. Well, it's the same car. You're the same person. You're at the same spot in life. The only difference is your perspective because of your previous experience.
Right. Dan nailed the human experience perfectly. The concept will hopefully help you understand the world a little better because it has for me. When people are used to a level 10, whether it's the neighborhood they live in, cars they drive, food they eat, clothes they wear, experiences they have, they may react negatively when the current experience is less than a 10.
You know, people ask like why rich people aren't as happy, and I just think it's because they've upped the bar so far that only the best things satisfy them.
Dan is one of the few people I've seen who understands this concept. Once your life only consists of 10 out of 10 activities, experiences, meals, and travel, it becomes very challenging to experience that same joy again once it becomes normalized.
A guy off the street, if I took, like when I got out of boot camp, I'll use that as an example. I go to Outback Steakhouse, I'm at a 10, right? Now, if I go to the best restaurant in the fucking world, I mean, I'm like maybe at like a 6 or a 7. I'm just like satisfied. I got 3 chefs. Like I eat the best food all the time. You know what I mean? So like that doesn't make me happy anymore.
If you go from Friday night dinners at your local chain restaurant to having private chefs every day, you're going to experience an immediate 10 out of 10 in enjoyment. You know how amazing that would be to have private chefs making all of your meals? But the challenge of being a human is that you'll eventually adapt and it becomes normal. Your new set point is at private chef making my meals level. How do you go up from there? How do you experience a spike in enjoyment from a meal again? Very challenging. Within the psychology literature, diminishing marginal utility is akin to the phenomena of affective habituation and hedonic adaptation. The chart of diminishing marginal utility can be applied to our lives in regards to experiences and the emotion of happiness or joy. Sticking to the private chef example, from period 0 to 1, you will experience the most amount of joy. That period could be 1 month or 1 year, but it is short term. From period 1 to period 2, you will receive a similar boost in joy, but not as strongly. By period 3, you have adapted and the joy of every additional consumption will be significantly less than when you first began. Sitting courtside at an NBA game, private chefs, flying private, steak dinners, you should always experience joy or have a positive emotion with these activities, but humans will always face the law of diminishing marginal utility, or in this example, diminishing joy. The general pattern holds. Humans acclimate to events, particularly small events, as their novelty subsides. Novelty is the key word. People who win the lottery can buy anything. What becomes challenging is once the novelty of material items wears off, you have to find other means to give you a boost in joy or happiness in order to experience that emotion again. From a psychology perspective, diminishing marginal utility of short-term gains can be understood in terms of habituation. The first bite of chocolate tastes better than the second, and so forth. And long-term gains can be understood in terms of adaptation to a new 0 point. I can eat ice cream all day, but the 20th bite brings less marginal satisfaction than the 19th bite, and so on. Eventually, you'll reach a new normal, aka a new 0 point, where any new feeling will be derived from that position.
When How I Met Your Mother first went on the air, I ran into an actress that I knew, and she said, "Are you just like so happy all the time?" And I remember thinking, does she really think that when CBS picked up the show, it left me with an inability to feel anything other than unbridled joy? But the joke was on me because I kind of thought it would.
Winning the lottery does not permanently increase happiness, but instead resets one's reference point so that the subjective value of stimuli are evaluated with respect to that new starting point.
So I can't buy happiness anymore. You know what I mean? I bought every thing that I ever wanted, right? There's not really anything that I want. So I can't buy any like pleasure.
Many of the lottery winners who go bankrupt or miserable fight with this issue. Going from having very little to having it all is great until it becomes normalized.
And also, if you gave me like a regular car or put me in a regular hotel, I would actually be at like below the normal level, whereas a normal person would be like happy to be on a vacation.
People who have money catch a lot of flack for these kinds of statements, but it makes sense. He's explaining his hedonic set point is high enough where something less than stellar or luxurious would result in a negative delta, resulting in negative emotions.
It's kind of like a guy that wins a lotto. Like a year later, he is like statistically less happy than a guy that got his leg amputated a year prior.
One alternative explanation for why people who have undergone a major life change, amputation, are not as unhappy as we might expect is that they might normalize the scale. In other words, they might subconsciously rate themselves relative to other amputees rather than to the average healthy person.
It's like when you get a piece of cake. If you've ever had a delicious piece of cake, it's fantastic. Fills you with joy. You're really happy while you're eating the cake, and afterwards, for a little short period of time, you're like, oh, that was awesome. And then you're back to normal. You're back to whatever state you were at before. If you were depressed and lost and unfulfilled before you ate the cake, you're going to be right back there.
Some of my most popular videos are about athletes getting rich quickly and then going broke, fake gurus promoting insane returns so you can get rich in a couple months, and crypto Ponzi schemes whose only marketing material is how rich you'll get. Understanding the concept of hedonic adaptation will hopefully help you navigate the world a little easier, and hopefully you'll fully understand why the question, does money buy happiness, is not worth your energy to even consider. My theory on why you hear the cliche, I know a lot of wealthy people are unhappy, or lottery winners becoming miserable, is that they reached a hedonic set point of 10 and never adjusted. Either way, I'm still pursuing wealth because I would much rather talk to a therapist after sitting courtside or flying private than riding the bus like I did not too long ago. Thanks for watching.